1. My restaurant opened up about a week ago, and it's been pretty slow, especially in the mornings. After having only one two-top at the bar an hour after opening, I was relieved when another lady finally walks in. We have signs that say "table closed" to prevent people from walking up to the bar. All guests are supposed to be seated by a host. This lady somehow bypassed the hosts, sees all the closed signs, and snaps at me, "Where do I sit?" I was caught off guard for a second because of her attitude, and because I haven't had anyone bypass the host to come to the bar yet. Usually nobody can get in without speaking to a host first. However, we were so slow and I didn't care. I just told her she could sit at the one spot and moved the closed sign for her. I ask her how she's doing, and she just sighs and looks at me, not replying for a couple seconds until she finally says flatly, "Good, how are you?" She asks for an iced tea to drink, and I bring it to her. Now the restaurant I work at has taken away all salt, pepper, and sugar caddies off the tables, and bar top for COVID. We have salt, pepper, and sweetener packets that we have by request only, that we are supposed to give out. Normally, what happens is I drop off a tea, they say, "Can I get some sweetener?" and I get it for them, no problem. This lady, however, without saying a word, gets up and walks away. I assume she's going to the restroom. She comes back glaring at me and literally slams down a bag of sweetener on the table that she must have got from her car. I tell her, "I had sweetener back here for you." "Oh, did you?" I was literally 6 feet away from her the entire time. All she had to do was ask me. She squeezed her lemon in the tea and literally throws it on the bar top. She orders her food with me, which default comes with a certain type of beans. We have other types of beans, and I usually ask if the default beans is what they want, but she seemed so irritated at me and was being so rude and short I decided not to ask her. If she wanted a different bean, it would take me 30 seconds to change it out. My manager was walking by, and heard the way she was talking to me, and asks her if everything is okay. She is visibly upset, yet keeps telling him she's fine. The other bartender asks what he can do to make her experience better. She literally ignores him. My manager brings out her food and she goes, "Should I have been asked what type of bean I wanted?" He says, "Did you want a different bean? I can get that for you." "That's not what I asked. She should have asked me what kind of bean I wanted." "Those are the default beans, but yes, I suppose she should have asked. I can get you other beans if that's what you want. It will take less than a minute." "That's not what I want. I just wanted options." Her tone is very belligerent and hostile throughout the whole exchange. Since there is nothing he can do for her, he walks away. She snaps at me to bring salt, so I do. Then she snaps at me to bring pepper, so I do. Then my general manager walks by and asks her what's wrong. That's how visibly angry this woman is. "Nothing's wrong!" But then she proceeds to tell him just how awful I am, how I am the worst server ever. She asks him if I have gone through training because I clearly have no idea what I'm doing. Then she turns to me and in the most condescending tone, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, says, "Can I, get the bill? And a to-go box?" She had just barely got her food, so excuse me for not reading your mind knowing you were done. I leave to get the to-go box, and my general manager asks me what was going on. I take maybe 2 minutes to brief him on the situation, and apparently the whole time I was gone she was saying, "Why is she taking so long? Where is she?" I bring her the box, and she's boxing up her food, literally slamming her plates and stuff all over. This lady is crazy. So I didn't want to bring the bus tow over to her and start taking plates away, because she was still boxing her food, and I didn't want her to get mad at me for taking something too early. My plan was to wait until she was done to take her plates away. However, she looks at me and snaps, "Are you, gonna come take some of these plates away?" The entire time I'm taking her plates away, she's berating me. "Is this your first day? Do you even know what you're doing? I used to be a server, and I would make $100 a shift because I knew what I was doing. I asked people what kind of beans they wanted with their meal." I just kept going, "Yeah, good for you. That's great, you're so good at serving." She hasn't put the card in the check presenter, but I see my other guest has. I'm literally in the middle of paying out my other guest when she goes, "Hello?" Like I'm supposed to stop helping my other guest and then pay her out. I tell her it was a pleasure serving her, my voice dripping with sarcasm, and she leaves, leaving me with a big fat 0 on her tab. Fuck you, Karen. I hate you. 2. So I work at a local Italian restaurant, mostly known for its pizza. It's run by a family from Guatemala, and I absolutely love it. Been going since I was a kid. We closed for the pandemic, but stayed open for takeout and delivery like we were open before. It's been crazy, honestly, because it feels like we get more business than usual with Corona. Anyway, it was a Monday, Memorial Day, and usually on Mondays we don't have someone working the counter. It had become so busy that my boss asked me to go in, knowing that I lived super close and could get there quickly. Mind you, I wasn't under the impression that I'd be called in to work that day, as it's usually only Fridays he asks me to work. I'd smoked only a little, so I was barely feeling anything, but because I'm a good employee and I love my job, I went in. It's a bit difficult to manage in the beginning, but I sober up. But it gets more and more busy. Deliveries are taking an hour instead of 45 minutes. Pickups are taking 30 to 40 minutes instead of the usual 15 to 20, even on super busy days when the restaurant was open. And I had to put in slice order after slice order. Those things are the worst, especially since I have to put them in manually. I get an order for a sandwich and put it in quickly so I can help the line of people and take the multiple calls I had put on hold. Eventually I get a call and this woman tells me that I got her order wrong, and I pull it up and according to my screen, it's fine. But she's telling me she only got 1 sandwich when she ordered 2, and it charged her for 2, so I'm like, "Let me figure this out, ma'am," and put her on hold to go grab the paper slice order. And lo and behold, she's right. I get back on to explain, and there's a guy on the line now. So assuming it's not her, I go to the other line and help the customer, who's also not her. When I help the gentleman, I explain the situation and I'm like, "I'm so sorry, it was my mistake, we'll send another one, I'm so sorry," etc. And he goes off on me. I kept apologizing and he just kept saying, "Don't you dare ever tell people they're wrong, especially when it's your own mistake," blah blah blah. I was freaked, so I don't remember everything he said. Once he was done, I hung up and was about to cry, when a woman who'd been waiting in the restaurant for a while by this point came up to me and said, "I've seen the way you've been handling this all by yourself. You don't have to apologize to anyone. And I appreciate you. I'm 16, okay? I make mistakes. I was working by myself tonight on counter, trying to handle every phone call, slice order, and customer that walked through the door. I can do it, but it's overwhelming." Here's the problem I have with what happened. First of all, it was unnaturally busy for a Monday. Unexpected. Orders were going out slow and there was a new kid in the kitchen. Second, I totally get why they were mad, I really do. It can be aggravating. But if I were in that situation, I never would have reacted like that. Maybe my parents just raised me with manners, but I would have called, they would have apologized and sent me another one, and I would have been on my merry way. Slice orders are annoying to put in, and they're at the bottom of my priority list when I've got calls and customers to take care of. It was 2 damn sandwiches. They could have just called it in, but no, they were lazy and put the order through a slice, so now it's my problem. Also, like, WTF, this bitch told her husband? But I was so polite, and never in a million years would I speak rudely to a customer and tell them that they're wrong. That shit really pissed me off. It still is. I ended up leaving super late that night at 10:30, when I usually leave at 8:30 or 9. Please, just have some sympathy and be nice. There's no fucking reason not to. 3. When I was about 19, I got my 3rd serving job ever, at a very well-known Italian chain restaurant. You could probably guess which one. I was super excited since the last job I had was a literal nightmare, and I was making pennies to match. I lived very close to the largest city in my state at the time, and even though the city itself was very progressive, the people around the city, not so much. I had to deal with a lot of ignorance and attitude that I wasn't really accustomed to at 19 years old. I have a plethora of stories from this specific location, but I'll stick with just this one for now. The police had been called on 2 other occasions while I had been clocked in, both times for disruptive customers who were belligerently drunk. They came in drunk and were never served any more drinks. This time was no different. It was about 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, so the bar top was packed, and we were on a horrendous wait. While I was getting silverware from the bar, I noticed a middle-aged man drinking with 2 ladies at the other end. The bar is shaped like a horseshoe, so they were directly in my line of sight. They were all laughing about something or other, very loudly I might add. But it didn't have anything to do with me, so I quickly got my silverware and forgot about it. I served my last few tables for the night, got stiffed on 2 $100 tabs, so I was definitely over it. And at this point it's around 10:30. I cash out, clock out, and while I'm walking past the bar I notice the guy from earlier is still there. He had his arms wrapped around both of the ladies he had been talking to earlier, and he was even louder than before, but again, whatever, not my problem. I get to the front doors of the building, and as I'm going out, a woman is rushing inside. She's dressed in a robe and slippers, and her hair is in a bonnet, and she looks mad as hell. She pushes past me before I even get the door open, and she's looking around frantically. I turn around to look at her because, wow, rude? But she's already storming off towards the bar top, and because I'm nosy, I poked my head around the corner to see what's up. The second this woman sees what I could only assume to be her husband, all coupled up with 2 ladies, she loses her mind. Now, mind you, I've seen men come into my job with their side pieces before, but this was next level. She started screeching at the top of her lungs, calling him every name in the book. That he's a dog, that men are shit, that he's done this before, and that if they didn't have kids, she would have left, just laying all their business out there, and everyone has gone silent. The 2 women he's with have this ghostly expression on their face, and they start packing up their purses and everything while this man gets chewed out by his wife. But they weren't safe from her criticisms either. She called them every name associated with promiscuous women, and threatened to effing kill them and her husband. One of my coworkers had notified my manager, and she finally made her way over to this woman to try and calm her down, and ask both her and her husband to leave. But this woman wasn't having any of it. She pushes past my manager and grabs for the dirty dishes still on her side of the bar top, and starts flinging them frantically in her husband's direction. Glasses smash on booths on the bar, over people's meals, and one actually gets him in the shoulder. It was a mess. My manager yelled for the bartender to call the police, and by this time, everyone had moved out of the bar area except for the married couple. Honestly, bless my manager's heart, because she was really trying to de-escalate the situation. And while this was happening, this woman was still screaming at her husband, and her husband was screaming right back. Finally, the police came and escorted the woman out, and paramedics were there for any possible injuries. Both of them got banned from all locations, and we later found out the man had like 3 warrants out for his arrest, and that he had actually been arrested for drunk driving twice. Apparently, those 2 women didn't actually know him at all, and they had met at the bar that night. But if you got this far down, thank you so much for listening to my rambling. I really appreciate it. 4. Just before shutting everything down, my wife got a new serving job. She had just enough time to complete her training before the restaurant went to carry-out only, and she got furloughed until they reopened for dine-in. Now, most of the staff at this restaurant had worked there since they opened this location 2 years ago. They have a very low turnover rate because of how good the money is and all the benefits they get. All levels of staff health, vision, dental, life, and even pet insurance, on top of 401k contributions and retirement plans. My wife was one of only a couple new hires, and the GM really likes her and recognized that she's a very strong server. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago. They reopened dine-in to 50% capacity, and only about 10 of their servers were called back to work. She happened to be one of the ones called back because, as I said, the GM could see how good she was at her job. While they wait for business to pick back up and go back to 100% capacity, the servers are being paid $9 an hour and splitting their tips. There are 2 male managers, one of which is the GM, and 1 female manager. The female manager never liked my wife from the start, and was upset that my wife was one of the few servers called back first, even though she was one of the newest hires. The manager is pissed that it wasn't one of her old buddies who had been there from the start instead, but my wife earned her position by being a strong server. Well, because they have this new tip-pooling system until the restaurant fully reopens, the female manager has been taking advantage of my wife to try and get her to quit. Every time she's managing, my wife ends up taking the vast majority of the tables that come in, while the other servers stand around huddled in a corner not doing any work. This frequently includes her taking tables in multiple sections that aren't even hers. There have been many times where she'll have 10 to 15 tables across 4 different sections, including booth inside and out on the patio, and the other servers have anywhere from no tables to only 2 or 3. Yesterday her shift didn't start until 5 and a 20-top came in at 4:30, and the manager told the other servers not to take care of them and to just wait until my wife came in. Basically, she's forcing my wife to do all the work and make everyone else's tips for them. At one point during her last shift, this manager told the bartender, who she's good friends with, not to make my wife's drinks. In my 7 years working in the restaurant industry, I've never seen such petty, unprofessional behavior from a manager. And the other 2 managers never do this on their shifts. And of course, the other servers aren't going to say anything because they're making money for doing nothing. Last night she made $170, and the other servers made $20 to $50. Yet, everything is being split evenly. I'm hoping they'll go back up to full capacity soon, and the tip sharing stops, because this shit is ridiculous. If I were her, I'd tell the GM what the other manager is doing. But my wife wants to show that she's not getting to her. But fuck that bitch of a manager. I hope she steps on many Lego bricks, and slams her fingers in a car door, and stubs her pinky toe 1,000 times over. Edit. My wife has agreed to talk to the GM. Everything is documented in the POS system, as far as the orders and number of tables, and even the host tables, that they use to document which server is serving which tables, so there's no way the manager can talk her way out of what she's been doing. Thank you to everyone who responded with advice and support. You guys are awesome. 5. This, my friends, is the tale of the very last silk thread of my patience, and a couple that came by with a pair of proverbial scissors. So, my restaurant just reopened for dine-in a little over a week ago. As expected, people are flocking to dine out in pre-COVID fashion, acting like there is no pandemic and the world has suddenly righted itself. Ugh. I'm sure you've all seen what that looks like lately. My restaurant is also open late. Friday and Saturday we close at 10:30 p.m. This was a hectic evening, running around all night with one other server when we normally staffed 3 for weeknights. And even at half capacity we never got fully caught up because of the large volume of to-go orders. This continues for the entirety of my 6-hour shift. The place is a mess. There are still 3 tables and it's 10:15. My poor co-worker, who was supposed to be off at 9, is still going strong, and offered to stay all the way up to 10:30. She's an angel. Because she knew I wouldn't be able to sort out the tables and clean up and close in 15 minutes. Now, a little tidbit about my restaurant is that when we close, we leave. It's always been my favorite thing about working there. We stop letting folks sit down 30 minutes before close. And we stop taking to-go orders 15 minutes before close. We're usually out on time or a little early. On nights like these, we can expect to be out around 10:45 because there's just more to clean up after a hectic night. So, at 10:15, the stars of our show peek their heads in. A tall blonde couple with a faint Slavic accent ask to sit down. I tell them no. It's too late to sit. But I can get you a to-go order. No, we really want to sit and drink something. We're actually not allowing anyone else to sit tonight. We still have tables and we close in 15 minutes. Well, can you ask? We just really want to sit down and drink. I guess my goodwill got to me and I was somehow still chipper by this point. So, I did go and ask the sushi chefs if we could seat one couple. They obviously said no. One of our chefs, Jay, is ruthless when it comes to letting people do stuff. He gave me a strong no, with no hesitation. Love that man. So I go back and tell them no, but like I said, I can get you a to-go order, or I can even do alcohol to go under new pandemic rules. At this point, I'm looking up bars in the area to see if I can direct them to an open spot. Everything is closed. Well, what's the difference if you make a to-go order or if we just sit down? I'm losing patience with these people big time, but I don't show it. The difference is if you sit down, you'll be making a lot of dishes and preventing us from closing when you finish your meal. Well, you can just ask them to give us food in to-go boxes. At this point, I'm not sure someone has ever gone this far after being told no. I had absolutely no intention of letting these people get what they wanted, but they were still standing there staring at me as I'm sorting this giant pile of credit receipts. I just went silent for around 10 seconds while I tried to compute what I was hearing. I finally came up with a response. I just asked, and they said no. But I can ask again if you'd like. Yes, please, just ask if they can give us food in boxes and we can leave whenever you say. So I go back over and ask the chefs again. Jay has fire in his eyes, as he tells me we already said no. I'm basically pleading with them to help me out here because they won't take no for an answer. I'm like, you tell them then, because they won't listen to me. And then the other chef cracked. They have equal authority and opposite viewpoints on the world and service, so there is often conflict about things like this. He tells me to let them in, and we'll give them the food in boxes. So I did. Head basically hanging as we got them their drinks and took their food orders. We did give them the food in boxes. They drank like 4 hot sakes, and then after promising to be out by 10:30, they ordered 2 more sakes at 10:28. That shit doesn't even cool off enough to drink in 2 minutes. By 10:35, the rest of the tables were gone and clean, and all the staff was basically staring daggers at this couple, willing them to leave. I guess they got the memo because they thanked us and left. For being the most persistent mothers I may ever have to deal with, they were certainly polite to us. In a weird, backhanded way, I suppose you could say. Looking back, I wish I had taken a harder line with these people at the door. I've been doing this for 2 years, and have been known to tell it a little too much like it is, especially at the end of the night. But I guess quarantine softened me up. If it happens again, I'll politely ask them to leave, if they don't want to make a to-go order, but damn, that standoff was something else. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 102, and thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'm a little bit excited because earlier this week, after getting a number of requests from subscribers, I submitted a design that hasn't been approved yet, but I did submit a design for a Hellfreezer zip-up hoodie. I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. It can take them up to 48 business hours. That's kind of an odd way to phrase it, but it can take them up to 48 business hours to approve a design. So I'm just hoping Teespring adds it soon. And I'm looking quite forward to seeing it go up because, like I say, I'm quite pleased with the design. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.